From countries I didn't even know, just like excited me and really attracted me. I think that was motivating for me.
The fact that we are all here and we all live together is what brings us together and makes us stronger.
I remember a student saying, before being Muslim, for example, before being a man, before being from this country, I'm a human being, and I learned that here. They were selected, not because they had money or not, but because they were doing something that was maybe then challenging the status quo. They want to make changes, they want to look for a different future, and many of them, they know that they have the power to make it happen.
I would love to continue in a major that will make me able to do something in the world, to make a difference.
I came from a school system where everything was very linear, and I could immediately see what was coming next for me. We're kind of allowed to do what we want in order to further our learning. If I want to build a vacuum cannon in the physics lab, if I want to build a canoe, then I can do that.
If we could enable the students to make mistakes and also to challenge us, in my mind, that's the biggest thing we can do, something to enable them to challenge.
Everybody, the moment they step on campus, is stepping out of their comfort zone. That sense of actually being somewhere when a lot of things are not familiar actually enables an acceleration of learning and understanding.
I found a lot of possibility in my life. I started to try a lot of new things I never tried before.
We have an amazing relationship with our teachers where hands-on learning, we make it a reality instead of a construct.
And when you really experience what you're learning, it creates so much more broad learning and so much deeper learning.
We're constantly discovering new things, and that's, for me, changing the way I see education. I don't see it as a classroom anymore. I don't see it as an institution. I see it as a way of going through life.
saying in the movie we were just seeing. And I propose we see that a bit as the frame for tonight's event, education as a way of going through life. Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to see you here. My name is Hannah Tümble. You all received an email from me yesterday. I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement with UWC International in London. And I'm also UWC Adriatic alum, so an alum of UWC in Italy. And a special welcome to, I will wave to the camera, to everybody who is also joining on the live stream on Facebook, which we set up and which will hopefully enable lots of UWC and Teach for All people and community members and some proud parents to also be watching. So I thought we should maybe start off by showing ourselves who is actually in the room, but I have a working hypothesis how this will go, but let's see whether I'm correct. So I will ask you to raise your hands when you belong to a certain institution I will mention. So could everybody who belongs to UWC raise their hand? Yeah. And could everybody who belongs to Teach for All or Teach for America raise their hand? And could those raise their hands who belong to both institutions? Great. And could everybody who was born in the US raise their hands? And everybody who was born somewhere else? And could everybody who currently works in education raise their hand? That probably includes students, yeah. I think that's quite relevant. Yeah. So thanks so much, and later on we'll have lots of opportunities both here during the reception and then also at the after reception to meet and mingle and see old friends, like for example a first year of mine I haven't seen since, I'm not going to disclose how many years, and also meet many new people. Tonight's event is a testament to the increased collaboration between Teach for All and UWC. It's actually the first dedicated event we are organizing together. And the reason we started this partnership is because we increasingly realized how aligned the mission and the values of our two organizations are. And so we are especially happy to be here today, and a special thanks for Teach for America for hosting us here tonight in their beautiful premises. I wanted to say a few words about UWC before handing over to Diana, but I feel I can probably skip that part. So whoever does not know what UWC is, you have an appointment with me later on that drink, and I will tell you then. Yeah, I think otherwise that's our mission, and actually even alums sometimes don't know that we are by now 17 schools and colleges worldwide. But I will spare you the rest because you all know at least as well as I do. And over to Diane, who is the director for special projects with Teach for All, to tell us what Teach for All does.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Oh, is it not on? Can you hear me now? Great. So I'm Diane Robinson, and I'm actually a 1994 Teach for America alumni. I grew up not too far from here over the Brooklyn Bridge. And I'll tell you my story a little bit later. Did Teach for America. I think I was in many ways a typical core member, thinking it would be 2 years, and that was about 20 plus years ago. So that's a little bit about me, but just to tell you a little bit about Teach for All, because it is a different organization, although we're in the Teach for America office. Teach for All, most of us sit upstairs on the 13th floor, but we're about to celebrate our 10th year anniversary, which is really exciting. We're, and I'm going to show you a video to really explain what Teach for All does. But to give you an overview, Teach for All is currently a global network of 45 partner organizations that are all around the world and are all working collaboratively to develop the collective leadership that's needed to ensure that all children can fulfill their potential. So I'll stop there, and I'm going to let this video explain to you exactly what Teach for All does to support our partners like Teach for America and the other 44 countries that are part of our global network.
Child is born with limitless potential, no matter where he lives or what her family earns. But around the world, millions of children don't have access to the education, support, and opportunity they need to fulfill that potential. This inequity is a global problem. It's unjust and it's damaging. And when millions of children aren't learning, it affects us all, perpetuating poverty, dividing societies, and weakening economies. There's no single solution to a problem so complex. But at Teach for All, we believe it can be overcome. To challenge it, we need many people piloting many solutions inside and outside of the classroom. We need innovation. We need a commitment to change. We need leadership. All over the world, Teach For All network partners are developing this leadership by calling on their country's outstanding graduates and professionals from every field to channel their passion towards expanding opportunity for children and commit 2 years to teach in the schools and communities where they're needed most. Through ongoing training and development, these teachers become effective classroom leaders and determined advocates for their students. Grounded in their teaching experience and deep belief in the potential of every child, they go on to be educators, policymakers, advocates, and entrepreneurs. Alongside others, they are working to change the systems that deny some kids the opportunities that all students deserve. While the circumstances facing children look different from country to country, their root causes and the challenges to addressing them are often similar. Through the Teach For All network, staff, teachers, and alumni can connect with peers around the world, learn from each other's unique insights, ideas, and innovations, and adapt promising solutions to their own country's needs. Teach For All's global organization helps potential partners understand the network's approach and apply it in their countries. Supports existing partner organizations in developing strong, sustainable programs and connects them to each other so they can make progress faster by working together. Teach For All, a diverse global network developing leadership in classrooms and communities and sharing solutions across borders to ensure all children around the world are able to fulfill their potential and shape a better world for themselves and all of us.
Great. Thank you so much. One thing I'll share in terms of the UWC connection is the narrator is Teach For India alum who is also a UWC grad. So we have many things in common, and I think we're all working towards the same mission. And I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah, who's going to frame this and get us started.
Great. So why an event called Education for Change? And maybe seeing that video already explained some of the reasons. But when we were discussing what we would like to do together when we have a room full of our respective community members, we realized that we wanted to do something which will move people into action. And the reason for that was that we felt we would probably agree quite quickly what is wrong and what is challenging with the world at the moment. Division of societies, increasing inequity, increased fear of diversity, to name just a few which resonate strongly with me. And so we thought we are probably in a state right now where we need to moving from talking about it to actually doing something about it. Or maybe to say it in slightly more stereotypical words, how we can support and inspire each other to be the change we want to see. And we wanted to do that within the frame of what role education can play in order to transfer us from talking about things to doing things. And this is why we've invited this very varied and wonderful group of speakers who I thank very much for, most of them having actually traveled to New York today. And they have very different backgrounds and very different stories, as you will hear tonight. But one thing which unites them is that education has been a real force for change in their lives. And what we hope to do with their stories tonight is to inspire each one of you, and each one of you maybe by a different story, and encourage you to take action, whether you are still in education or whether in whatever fields you work and live in today. So how will we do this? We will do this by giving each of these speakers a maximum of 10 minutes, and I've told them that I will actually time them, 10 minutes to tell us their story and their call to action. We will then open up the floor to one or two very pressing comments or questions after each speaker, but we'll leave the big round of comments to the very end. And additionally, if you really can't hold your comment to yourself, you can live tweet your comment. And the hashtag is TFAll, so Teach For All UWC. And that also relates to the people watching live, because you can also tweet your questions and comments, which we then will feed into here. And so now over to the panelists, Sheila, Marwan, Fatima, Aaron, and Diane. And I will ask Aaron to kick off. As you saw before, he is one of the overlaps between UWC and Teach For All and Teach For America. Aaron is a UWC USA alum from 2007 and a Teach For America alum from 2015. And he just graduated from the Harvard School for Education. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you very much. So first of all, super, unbelievably exciting to see UWC and Teach For America, Teach For All people in one room. Although it seems like, I think my mom and I are the only dual overlap. So hopefully here's some more overlaps headed forward. So I want to talk about the variety of things that I could focus on. The thread that I think I can bring to this panel that played a big role in the 4 years I spent in my Teach For America experience. I was the teacher from 2012 to 2016 in Miami, Florida, had to do with kind of by accident finding myself in a role of organizing and supporting student-led gay straight alliances in Miami-Dade's urban public high schools. It kind of started when I was placed in Miami in 2012. I had graduated from UWC in 2007, and in many cases, and Jamie trained me when I was entering. It's just like a crazy, coming full circle moment for me. Anyways, so Jamie was training me in 2012 when I was about to be placed as a teacher in Miami. And when I got there, I was entering a school as the very southern part of Miami-Dade County. Exit 1 on the turnpike, if anyone knows Miami. It's the last thing before you hit the ocean, about 1,000 feet later. And the school was sort of disadvantaged in two senses. For one, you had all the challenges of an urban high school and the lack of resources and the lack of support that goes along with that. But in addition to that, the school was geographically outlying. And so it was sort of additionally neglected by the district. And there were those sort of twofold elements there. And so entering the school, it was 96% students of color from all over the Caribbean, all over Central and South America, 96% poverty as indicated by free and reduced lunch measures. And I was coming in as this 23-year-old, and I'm different from my students in quite a few senses in terms of coming in as a young person, in terms of coming in as a white person. I was not from Miami. And very early in my first year, I was asked by a couple students if I would sponsor a gay straight alliance. And the context for being asked was that these students, it was two boys, one was African American, one was Caribbean American, and in 8th grade they both come out, which is not something that happened in the school they were going to in 8th grade. But they had each other to support, and they asked if they could have a gay straight alliance, and they were told no. So then the next year they came to the high school, and they asked if they could have a gay straight alliance, and again they were told no. And then in 10th grade, which was the year that I was in my first year as a teacher, they asked if I would sponsor the gay straight alliance. And I had entered thinking I'm not going to add another thing that's going to be a barrier between my ability to connect with my students. I made the decision to be in the closet and not be out. But I wasn't going to be another teacher who said no to these students. So we circled the wagons and took some time, but we got it approved to start up at the beginning of my second year. And between those two and a third student who got involved, we were organizing, we were thinking about how we were going to reach out to the school, and the students were really pushing hard for this. And we thought it was going to be an important group for 10 to 12 students, and we thought it would whittle down after that. And when we had our first meeting, we had 56 students and 9 teachers show up. And we were all blown away, and over, we kept hearing students say, I thought I was the only one. And that didn't just mean I thought I was the only one who was gay or lesbian, although in many cases it certainly meant that. It was also people said, I thought I was the only one who had a brother. I thought I was the only one who had a sister. I thought I was the only one who was not okay with the way gay and lesbian kids get talked about, and I think we need a space where we can come together and treat each other better. So very quickly coming out of that, I started talking to everyone I knew who I thought was in a position to act on this and create these sorts of spaces. And we helped 4 other schools start up their own student-led gay straight alliances and created this network of where we do events. We bring in openly LGBT adult speakers who are diverse in the broadest sense of the word. But I started to see more and more within Homestead how going from I thought I was the only one and no one else is like me and the various ways that meant, the various ways that was having an impact on the broader school. So we had an open mic night, for example, about a month or 2 after the Gay Straight Alliance had started, and there were 4 poems in there that were directly related to the GSA, which I was kind of blown away. I mean, and by directly related, I mean, one was called Gay Straight Alliance. I'm not reaching for this. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Another student performed her poem, and then in front of the entire auditorium, parents, peers, came out. And 4 kids from the GSA rushed the stage, and she was crying, and they were hugging her. So these things started happening. I was like, I can't believe this is what's happening. And all I was doing was providing the space and organizing sort of logistics, and providing a room and being there. But that's what was happening. And where I really started to realize how much bigger this was than just gay or lesbian issues, although there were lots of indications of that, was when a student came to me and he asked me if he could have what was called the Spotlight, which was a weekly feature we did where literally someone was like given the floor and we'd like, you know, they'd sit there, kind of like I'm sitting here right now, and they'd talk for as long or as short as they wanted about who they were and what brought them to the room that day. And I had a student who came up to me, and he was a super high achieving student, and I knew him at that point as long as I'd been to school, and he was like, can I have the Spotlight next week? And I remember thinking like, okay, like, he's like super high achieving, like the profile would fit of this is the kind of student who is like in the closet and like has funneled all his stuff into this career focus. And he took the Spotlight, he started talking, and I'm like waiting for the gay part to come. And he's talking, and he was talking about how he moved from Haiti when he was 8 years old, and he hadn't seen his mom since he was 8 years old, and he was just talking about missing his mom and how he wanted to do well to make his mom proud. And he got to the end, and that was the Spotlight. And it had nothing to do with gay or lesbian issues, but this was the place he thought he could come and talk about this other challenge he was going through. And everyone there saw that. They said, yes, of course, having a difficult experience when you're transitioning to a new country is related to what gay or lesbian students face, is related to what a variety of other things that we brought up would face. So it started to have that ripple effect. Now,
Oh, I didn't stop you. You are the university, I have no idea.
I was told I was in Germany was monitoring this. I remember how that goes. Well, I wanted to say something else that I think directly relates to so much of what UWC is about, and like how this translated into like making me the kind of teacher I ended up being, was that as much as like all this, everything I described so far was happening at the very beginning of the GSA. I wasn't personally out at that point. And then it just so happened, it was one of those, you just can't script this stuff. My then boyfriend and I got in a bad car crash about a month after the GSA was started. And I ended up I had to go to the hospital, get checked for internal injuries, and it had been, you know, I said, the last thing before you hit the ocean. It was on the bridge, like going into the Florida Keys, string of islands that leave the mainland. And there had been a moment that night. First of all, we were fine. But second of all, we spent about 3 or 4 hours up on that bridge, just thinking about the ways this could have gone. And the lady, the police officer who was responding to the situation had said, you know, I've never seen a crash like this, that we didn't have to call the Coast Guard to pull the body out of the water. And there was a moment really early on when my boyfriend and I first sort of snapped back to consciousness, and we got out of the car, and he had blood running down his face, and like an episode of ER or something. He was like suddenly whisked into the back of an ambulance, and I saw like through that teeny little glass pane or whatever you call it in the back of the ambulance. I remember seeing him having the blood removed from his face. I remember thinking, if he goes to the hospital tonight, Florida does not have visitation rights, and if he dies tonight, is he going to die alone? And that really messed with me, that thought. And he didn't end up having to go. But that was when I said, I can't be in school anymore and be creating this divide between the things I experience in my life that affect me as a person and what I'm seeing in the GSA with these kids who are so open and so bold. And here I am, and I have much less to worry about, and I'm demonstrating a different message than they're living out every day as truth. So I made the decision that I was going to come out to the class. So I came back, I remember they're 9th graders. They actually just graduated last week, which is super cool. But they're 9th graders at the time. And I was like, guys, you're about to sit up inside of me. And I just started talking, and I was like, I was on a car accident. They knew there'd been a car accident. We were on the bridge. I said the piece about if I had not made it last night, I would not be okay with where we are as a class. I feel like we can come together a lot more than we are. And then I talked for a while, and I said, I'll take any questions. Kind of a pause. So tense pause. And this one kid like raises his hand. I didn't know where this was going. I thought I might come out in the process if the question came, but I didn't know where this was going. And he raises his hand. He says, does our conduct grade count as much as our classwork for our final grade? And I'm like, well, I can't be like, well, that was a dumb question in the first place. So I was like, yes, like I said, every single like, yes, it does. And then the second one raises her hand, and she says, why did you say you thought about us on the bridge? And I was like, okay, this is like more about it. And I said, well, you know, education is really important to me, and you know, like being a teacher matters to me a lot more than just like going in and showing up. And I think about you guys, and I'm glad we're having this moment where we start to sort of see more of each other in this way. And the third hand goes up, and she says, was anyone in the car with you? I'm like, well, here we go. And I said, well, you guys are about to learn something about me? Yes, my boyfriend was in the car with me. And like all of a sudden, like every single, I just started feeling like, desk. I was starting to like dip my toe in the water of like, you know, gonna come out at some point. So there was a picture on the desk, and one girl, Asian girl, super hesitantly raises her hand, and I go, yeah. And she goes, is he black? And I go, yeah, he is. And then the thing that was crazy, and this was like a moment that was a big learning moment for me, like all of the black boys started like doing the hand claps and things, and they're like, yeah. And I was like, maybe this is not going to be a bad thing. Like, what? And, like, and they had so many questions, and what really struck me about that was at one point when I asked like many questions in, I was like, did you guys have a suspicion? And someone said, we wondered, but we thought you didn't respect us enough to tell us. And I was sitting there going, wow, here I was putting in all this effort to avoid creating something that I thought would make them uncomfortable, and it actually had the opposite effect. And I realized you can't just check who you are at the door. I think kids actually pick up on who people are a lot better. I think we get trained out of that. And so they would, you know, they picked up on that. So anyways, but fast forward to the end, because I know you're a German timekeeper. You know, in my fourth year, so I've now been out many years, and very established in the school. I moved to the community, I lived there. And in my fourth year, there were 2 young gay male teachers who were hired. So I was the only one for a while. And then we would split like an amoeba or something, the 3 of us. I remember one of them was asking me, he's like, you've been out for a while. And I was like, yeah, I was. And so we had a very serious heart-to-heart for like an hour and a half about his concerns. And he was Mexican-American. A lot of the kids were Mexican-American. He thought that might create a weird dynamic. And so we had this very serious heart-to-heart. Mr. Araiza was his name. And then I walked outside, and the student who I'd known for many years, he's now a junior, he'd been a freshman. He'd actually been in the room that day coming out from it. And he shouts out, Mr. Bossman. And I go, yeah? He's with the group. And he goes, have you met the new history teacher, Mr. Araiza? And I go, yeah, I met him. And just come out of this like deep heart-to-heart about like, reveal when you're ready, don't push yourself. And then he goes, he's even gayer than you! And I'm like, oh, what makes you say that? And he goes, Mister. And I'm like, what do people think of that? And he said to me, we don't care. We've known you 3 years. And just the other night, like 3 or 4 days ago, I was hanging out. Mr. Araiza took over the GSA when I left to study education policy at Harvard. And I asked him how it had gone this year, and he said, this is an amazing thing to hear. He says, it's actually been kind of hard because Homestead Senior High is so gay-friendly that people don't see the need for a GSA anymore. And I know I'm over time. Work. And even if you could somehow try to be a being out of time and space and pretend your experiences don't shape you, it wouldn't be a good thing because it can be a source of connection, not a barrier as I imagine it to be. And second of all, that if you anchor something in LGBT issues, I really come to believe in this strongly, just like Bernard saw the GSA as a space where anyone could express who they were and the issues they were going through, that at its best, being LGBT is a lot more than just about being LGBT, and it's about a world very different from the one we live in which everyone can realize their potential and can who they are. And we're not there, but I think with LGBT issues as an anchor, it's a good starting point to make everyone included. And then finally, when we think about UWC, when we think about our work as teachers or whatever else we are, I saw a great line in a TED, heard a great line in a TED talk where someone made the comparison of a plane leaving California. And they said that at the beginning of the trip, the smallest change in direction is the difference in landing in Australia compared to landing in Japan. And I think for what the students did and the part I had in making that space possible, they did the rest. I think about how many flights, how many courses were altered as a result of that. So leaving California, how many people are going to be ending up in a very different place that makes them more accepting, that makes them want to reach out to all kinds of people. So those are my thoughts. I'm really thrilled to hear what everyone else has to say, and I can't thank you guys enough for listening and to take it forward in your own ways.
Are there any immediate comments or questions? Yeah.
Ah, awesome. Oh, thank you for asking that question. The right to visit someone in the hospital on the basis of dating them or not, like you need to be family, in other words. And in theory, like technically a straight couple, they would be equally not allowed, but in reality, no nurse would be like, oh no, like you can't see your girlfriend or boyfriend, right? But with gay couples, there are a variety of, many, unfortunately, examples of where that happens. Thank you for asking.
Thanks a lot, and I'm sure that to the theme of safe space is something we'll certainly come back to in one variation or the other. So I'll turn it over to Sheila, and I am prepared now with the 2-minute sign. And with Sheila, we will change to somebody who was born in Ghana and lives in the US now. However, we will stay in the same UWC here because she and Aaron are co-years from UWC USA. And Sheila works today at the African Leadership Academy. So over to you.
Thank you. My most influential experience when I was in undergrad came my senior year, actually. As part of the requirement to graduate, I went to Princeton, like she mentioned. You actually have to do a thesis, whether you like it or not. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, one more hurdle, I'm almost there, what am I going to write my thesis about? And instead of just choosing a random topic, I figured this is the one time I can actually push myself to make sure I'm answering some of the numerous questions I have when I'm in Ghana, and then seeing all the economic development challenges that I grew up with. And so in trying to figure out what exactly my thesis was going to be about, I remembered, hey, just a few months back, you were working at the malaria control program in Nigeria. And in trying to write a grant to the Global Fund, one of the questions that kept coming up was, how well is that foundation doing? The work that has been said to be doing, all the money they've received so far, all the personnel, all the activities, are they actually being effective? Are they managing those resources very well? And we definitely have our dream, obviously, we're all saying yes, but there was no data, there was nothing to actually back what we were thinking was the case. So I decided, you know what? Economics background, data, econometrics, these are things that I knew I was comfortable with. And obviously felt like it was easy for me to try to use that background to answer some of these questions. So that was my thesis. Long story short, that for me was like the defining moment of my career. I figured, you know what, education should not just be a name only. It does need to count for something. And in fact, it should count for something. Because why go through school for 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, and do nothing with it, right? It could be a more difficult application based on your other interests, but one way or the other, you can find ways to make your education useful and relevant. Currently, I work with African Leadership Academy, and our sole purpose is to help develop new African leaders who are more ethical to try to push the continent into an era of prosperity and growth. Every single day in my work, I'm motivated. I hear so many wonderful stories of what young people are doing through the realm of education. An example, just last week, one of our alum was rewarded the Apple Green Fellowship. Most of you will know that's super, super prestigious. He's just a senior at Notre Dame, and yes, he's gotten to that level. And how did that come about? When he was growing up in South Sudan, he had to walk at least 1 hour, one way to get to a classroom. And so he decided, you know what, having made it through that, having gone to ALA and now at Notre Dame, I know education was one of the key reasons why I have been this successful. I can wait for the education service to make a change and create schools closer to where people live, or I can actually be the change I want to see. which is pretty much what I'm pushing all of us here to do. Let us all be the change we want to see. And so he decided to build a school in his hometown. So for years to come now, no one is going to have to work an extra hour to get to school. That's 2 extra hours being spent in the classroom, not just trying to get to school. So that's what he did. Another example, there's a Kenyan student who went to ALA as well. In the late 2000s, Kenya had an issue with their election where it turned quite violent with the different ethnic groups trying to divide among themselves. He decided, you know what, I am Kenyan, all these other people are Kenyan. There is no one person who owns Kenya. We can wait for the political leaders to come together and decide, oh, we are forming a coalition and we're going to have a ceasefire. Or as a Kenyan citizen, I can actually bring my people together and say, you know what, this is our Kenya. We have as much right to a peaceful Kenya as the average politician out there. And so she started a movement of just simply bringing Kenyans together with the hashtag I am Kenyan. It went viral. She's done so well with that. And at that time, she was 17 years old. If a teenager, if someone in college right now can actually decide to do something with their education, what excuse do you and I have? Right? And maybe you are interested more in law than education. Maybe you want to make that money. It's fine. But like I said, there are indirect ways where we can be helpful. So the next time a friend of yours is doing a fundraiser for something they care about and they send it to your inbox, before you give them that side eye, please think about it. That could be your contribution to a good cause, because maybe you don't have that capacity or the interest in that way, but someone else is putting themselves out there, someone else is putting their resources to it. So in one way or the other, let's get creative in how we contribute to making this world better. Last story I'll share. On Saturday, one of my friends sent me a video about some young students who were profiled in the Volta region of Ghana. They have to swim across 2 different rivers to get to school every single day. And when I watched it, I was sad for just a split second, because I remembered, you know what? For the past year, Teach for Ghana is actually working in the Volta region of Ghana. So I realized, you know what? I can sleep better. I haven't lost my appetite, not because I am personally there to sort it out, but I figured there was something I could do. I immediately forwarded that video to the team at Teach for Ghana, and I was like, guys, are we in this particular district of the Volta region? I'm waiting for them to give me an answer. One way or the other, my intention is to push that conversation. If not just that district, at least what work are we doing across Ghana? Let's not just focus on the Volta region. Let's actually push ourselves to expand more. That's how I'm using my social media. What are you using your accounts for? I think I'll end here.
Any immediate comments or questions to Sheila? You want to say a few more words about the African Leadership Academy? Because I don't know whether everybody in the room knows. Okay. So like I mentioned earlier, the mission for African Leadership Academy, ALA for short, is to develop new African leaders. So very similar to the concept of UWC, where young people are believed to be influencers and change makers. Except ALA is focusing on the African continent. And so the students are recruited between the ages of 16 to 19. They come to Johannesburg, South Africa for 2 years of education. We go with the A-levels, not the IB like UWC. And in addition, we have our own African Studies curriculum, leadership curriculum, and entrepreneurial curriculum as well. So the whole idea is, having spent those 2 years of trying to understand who they are as individuals and what their connection to the continent is, going forward, they will actually feel more empowered to actually be the change makers we want them to see. Well, the change makers we want them to be. But then we also discovered, being a leader is not just those 2 years of an experience. I'm sure a lot of people in this room will agree with that. If you went to UWC, just those 2 years is not it. Beyond the 2 years, there's a lot more we can do, which is where my particular role comes in. When they come to college, we do need to remind them, we do need to support them to figure out, what am I doing through college?
and still be able to remain connected to the African continent. Still be able to have that passion that I had when I was a teenager in South Africa. Any questions about ALA, anything else? If not, I think we'll move to the next person.
I suggest is that we will show a short movie about UWC Mostar, and that is the one school which I believe takes our mission for being a force for peace and a lighthouse for peace in a post-conflict situation, probably lives it to the biggest extent within our movement. So let's watch your hope.
Country where tensions are still present. We're trying to set an example, which is that actually people from different ethnicities can study together and can live together. And by doing this and by stressing this example, I feel like it will spread to, I hope, the whole country.
We try to encourage dialogue to enable students to understand what the situation looks like from the perspective of the other person. So essentially, empathy.
My expectations for students, I always tell them, is whatever you do in your life, never to use your knowledge against humanity, but for humanity, for the improvement of humanity.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Just before they start, I would like to make a presentation. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Alina. I'm from Argentina. We all have a story that we would like to share. My story is that one day I was going back home with a friend, a female friend.
We should give people the opportunity to explore their potential until they find out what they want to do with this. Young people have power to change things. And we're not only the generations of the future, we're also a generation of today.
There are some students who are very much here for the academics, and there are the students who are here for the international community, who are here for the fun, for the people. There are people who are here to change the world. We're going to bring new generations of people who can lead society as a whole towards something new. It doesn't need many people. It just needs a small, powerful, encouraging group to make a big change.
Any comments? I'd love to have a comment on the UWC refugee initiative. Maybe Peter, Linda, Ines, Jill, somebody.
Yes, I think the stories we've had so far are not only very compelling in terms of their individual trajectories, but I think it really is not looking back, it's looking to the future. We do realize that the challenge with the refugee crises is just a drop in the ocean, in the sense that there's so many problems in the world that need to be addressed, and they can only really be addressed. I think more and more people are realizing this, thanks to teach for America, teach for all, thanks to the education programs. People are realizing that actually the only way to achieve change and to solve these problems is through education. So on the matter of refugees, which has become, if you like, a flagship course for UWC in the last 2 years, we see this as a true expression of delivering the impact that the mission of UWC professes. And that impact is really expressed through the lives and the tortures in your lives that you all carry, and people who've gone through such difficult life stories, who will have a positive impact on everyone else around them, and in small ways, in big ways. Of course, what's important also is that the force of humanity in effecting change, it can happen as individuals, but when it really happens is when we join forces within our own organizations, but also across organizations. I think in a district like today, where we can remind ourselves that of the great things that we're doing, helps just to grow the positive mission that we're trying to achieve. We need a lot of help to deliver the UWC mission. I'm sure it's the same for Teach for America, Teach for All, for the ALA, many others. But I think if we help each other, and this is a very good start, we're doing places. So I don't want to be too specific about the refugee mission, because I will start asking people for money. My job is not so.
Thanks a lot. And that was Peter Köchele, who worked at University International in London and is an AC alum as well. Thank you, Peter. Any other comments? Leave them to the end. Yeah.
What people went through before, when it's just very traditional, very different directions that young people actually interpret education, which I think is important and encourages my generation to think again, because we have been on this journey, which sometimes we forget it's not subject, it's not only about social service, social focus on whatever is happening. It's really totally holistic, and it helps us think of being, I think I've seen learning as being lifelong learning beyond products and institutions, but the lady from the house said that, what can you do? How can you influence? How can you support? And we also work here. But how can you go beyond what we traditionally saw, and how can we keep thinking, keep influencing, keep asking, and keep dialoguing to go further, which I think is fantastic. So thank you.
Thanks so much, and I will continue introducing you if you don't do it yourself. So that was forcibly, who is at the International School here in New York, and who is the incoming Director of Education with UWC International, starting the last August, and is one of our alums from Baltimore and Swaziland. Thank you for that. I think that is actually a beautiful transit to our next speaker, who is Diane, who I don't need to introduce again because you've heard from her before, how I Teach for America and Teach for All connection, because we'll go back to education again as a matter of work, not only life.
I was actually just thinking to myself God, I wish I could still do UWC, but it's already too late for that. But it's never too late to learn. So I'm going to come at this in terms of, I think there are actually some themes that have come up to what I'm going to share about my experience. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of who I am and where I come from, and sort of the values that made me want to be in education, especially in low-income communities. How my experiences in Teach for America, mostly, and now Teach for All, has sort of influenced the decisions that I've made, and then just share a few things with you about what I've learned, and what I would just put out there to you all as something to think about tonight. So I'll start with just a little bit about my story. I was born in Jamaica. I sort of know firsthand what having limited access to high quality education, what that can mean in terms of changing your life path. I spent the first 7 years of my life observing the ways in which it's born in a very rural part of Jamaica, the south part of the island where most people don't visit. They go to Dunn's River and Montego Bay. I'm from what they call red dirt country in Jamaica. You can grow a lot of vegetables in this part of Jamaica, but most people don't go there because it's very hot. And I was the daughter of working class parents, so I was very lucky actually because I saw in my own family, especially in my mother's siblings, that if you need access to basically cash to go to college in Jamaica, even to government schools. And I was lucky because I had parents who sent me to private school. My mother was one of 9 children and the only one to finish high school. And my father was a union organizer in a bauxite factory. So they took the little they had and they sent me to one of the best prep schools, which put me on a path by the time I got to the U.S. that I was, able to get into that tracked public school in Brooklyn in the late 70s that then tracked me to go to the right of high school that I could test into that, a kid that I sat next to in AP English told me about Vassar College. I'd never heard of Vassar College in my life. If I'd gone to Brooklyn College, my mom would have been thrilled. And I ended up going to Vassar. And, when I told my mother I was going to Vassar, she'd never heard of it either. She didn't flinch. She was like, what's it going to take? I was like, Mom, don't worry, I have scholarships. But, so you still have to pay something. And my mother was right all in. So we're very grateful to my mom. She was one of those ladies who was like, I didn't get that far, but you're going to go as far as that or further. And my dad, there's so many stories about my father when you go back to Jamaica. I have his nose, so people will find me and be like, you're Maurice's daughter. You've got the same nose. And they'll tell me these stories about my dad, which still makes me very emotional. The organizing he did in that factory led to people having health care and sending their kids to school and buying homes. And, hearing about that as a kid, you're like, wow, I want to be like my dad. So, and I actually learned in this last election in the U.S., I came to realize my dad was a Democratic Socialist, which I didn't know the term back then, but that's, if he were still alive, let's just say that's who he would have voted for. After coming to the U.S., I became a first-generation college graduate, and I was pushed by my mom at that point to become a lawyer. And I decided against that path and joined Teach for America. Because to me, a lot of the values that I was raised for I felt like they were embodied in the Teach for America experience. I wanted to serve kids in low-income communities like myself. So I ended up teaching first grade bilingual classrooms for 4 years in Compton, California. Miami. It's the most transformational experience you'll have in your life. I had 36 first graders that first year, no aid. And, nothing lets you grow up or forces you to grow up quicker than like 36 pairs of eyes who are looking at you like, what now, lady? Right? So I learned really quickly how to teach reading. And And I loved reading as a kid, so I was excited about sharing that love of books with my kids. And I was extremely focused on academic success because that's how I had come to understand my success in school, right? I didn't always reach all my kids, and I'll come back to this because I learned some lessons that later on that helped me basically see that we've got to come at this in a much more global and holistic way if we really want to reach all our kids. So, post Teach for America, I worked on staff actually, and I helped build that organization running the LA operations, and then working on staff to help grow the organization. It's unbelievable to see where the organization is now, much less to see there's a Teach for All, helping partners around the world to, do this mission of recruiting recent college graduates to teach in low-income communities. I think for me, the path of leaving the classroom and content has always been a path of how do I reach more and more kids, right? I had my first graders coming back to me at one point during my 4 years saying, we're learning the same thing you taught us in first grade, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. So I wanted to work on the teacher effectiveness issue in education, and I did that for the decade that I worked at Teach for America. I left the organization after that because I knew, I started to see like the power of school leaders, right? And if you could get great school leaders, what that could do for a whole school. So I spent a few years helping to grow the KIP network, which is a charter school association here in the US. And I reached a point where I felt like that wasn't enough, but we had recruited maybe 40 principals in a 2-year period on my team, and we were only going to reach, I think, maybe 20,000 students. And some of those principals are still running schools, some of them here in New York and in New Jersey, and I'm very proud that I even know them. But to me, it's like, what about those kids that couldn't get into the KIP school? So that's what led me to Harvard, to the Graduate School of Education, and I was really excited about that because it was a degree that was about impacting scale, but it was also about learning to collaborate with people who are very different than me. Harvard designed the EDLD program that I did. We were the guinea pigs in year one in 2010. The idea behind that was they were going to put 25 people together in education who had similar experiences to me, but who believed totally different. They had different perspectives on the problem. So here I was in this cohort with, people who were like, Teach for America, oh, we can't stand you guys. You guys leave after 2 years, right? And here I was in a cohort with people who were working in certain organizations who I didn't think held the bar high enough for kids, and who were, sometimes I think part of the problem. And I got to tell you, those 3 years were really interesting for me because what I realized is we were forced to work together, honestly, right? It was like, look, you can't turn in a paper anymore by yourself. It's 5 of you as a group turning it in together. And some of those conversations were some of the hardest that we ever had. But I was lucky because what I realized in those group experiences is that I learned the most, usually from the people that I disagreed with the most. And usually it was because they had become somebody that I looked into the eye, someone that you had a relationship with, and you may not end up agreeing with them on everything, but you respect them, right? And they're an individual, and they're no longer the union leader or the Teach for America person, but they're Diane or Aaron or Hannah, right? And it allows you to have a whole different type of experience. I ended up training with a professor who created a framework called Adaptive Leadership, and I was really excited about it because he taught us about system thinking and this whole idea of getting to the level of values and beliefs in the system, right? And that groups don't change, and we're not going to solve this problem in education, right, unless every single group in that system changes, right? And it's not going to change at the level of a new policy, but it's going to change in terms of the beliefs and the values that we adopt. And that was pretty transformational to me because I started to, honestly look around at what's going on in education in the US. And I decided, and that's part of what brought me back to Teach for All, that I wanted to be a part of an organization that was working globally, because I think the problems we're facing right now in education in the US are global problems. And they're across boundaries, they're across countries, and I think the solutions are very similar. So I'll wrap up on three things. One, just in terms of practical steps we can take kind of through this out to be forces of good as we all try to tackle this problem from where we sit, right? I became a Buddhist a few years ago, and I learned a lot about this idea of happiness, and that you can't be actually a force for good if you're not happy as an individual, right? And if you leave who you are at the door. And that you can't actually contribute to the happiness of others if you're not happy. So I would encourage you all to think about what makes you happy. What made me happy was to take my path at Teach for America instead of being a lawyer. So I encourage us all to take that path that's aligned to whatever the values are that you were taught by your parents that you want to hold on to, right? And that you want to adopt, because there's some values that I've decided to shed. And then secondly, I learned this at Harvard and through my cohort. I think we have to figure out how to work across boundaries of differences in society. My cohort, like I said, was extremely challenging, but I think we need to put ourselves in positions when we are in conflict with whether it's an idea, a person who is different from us. I've come to realize that, for me it was this issue of test scores in my cohort, and I was the one who always fought for test scores. I don't even believe in test scores that much, but it's this thing that I think sometimes of like needing to be right, and I think you adopt this in culture sometimes and it becomes almost arrogance. And for me, what I've learned is that when I notice this desire to be right starts to come up, I just shut up and I'm like, just be quiet, it's a red flag. Now you just need to listen. Because I think it's in that listening that you learn, and it allows you to even hear what the other person's saying. And sometimes both of you will recognize what you're saying, maybe that's not the solution either. Maybe there's a third or a fourth way that we're not even thinking about. So I encourage us all to play with that. And then lastly, we're very focused right now at Teach for All and thinking about how can we help our partners around the world help build programs where they're creating both locally grounded and globally informed student visions. And I think it goes back to a lot of what we're talking about today. Like we believe that the only way to do this is through our kids, right? Like the planet will not be peaceful and sustainable if we do not start to educate our kids differently. We're still trying to figure this out. We think it has a lot to do with proficiencies, helping kids with being aware of who they are, where they're from, being proud of that, ensuring that they have the skills, the dispositions to be effective in the 21st century and in a future that many of us, we don't know what it looks like, and ensuring they have the agency and, to take action and be like many of the people who are on this panel. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least speaker, Fatima, who is sitting next to me. Fatima is also UWC USA alum, so very well represented UWC here tonight from 2012. And she has joined us from Washington, and Fatima grew up in Afghanistan. Not only was born in Afghanistan, but she will tell you about that.
I'm very much honored to be here in your presence and to be one of the speakers. I will share my experience, and it's my educational whole story of how it all evolved. And that education was not just a right, but it was a privilege to receive for someone from my country, and certainly as a woman, and it had a great amount of cost, which should not be taken as my English is good, it's just not that. It should not be taken for granted. and I lived there for the first 10 years of my life. My family was a refugee, and they were there for 20 years. And being in a country as a refugee for such a long time, the country had gotten pretty tired of Afghans as refugees. And they started to use the term Afghan as an insult word among themselves. And that was when my family drew the line and we moved to Afghanistan. But when we moved to Afghanistan, it was a country where we belonged to, and we were always told that we are from there, but we knew pretty much nothing because we had never been, and we had to teach ourselves pretty much the language and everything about the culture. And it seemed like it's a normal thing for us. So when we were, I was 10, and I have many siblings. And when we went back to Afghanistan, we realized that as children, we really did not have any educational material for children. So we waited for a year. We gathered information, and it was me who was 10 at the time, my sister who was 11, and then my other sister who was 13. So we gathered information. We were set to change the world. That's why we were so sad. So we gathered that information. We talked to the people. We became the mini journalists, and we spoke to any person in some kind of position in any organization. So then 2 years later, we decided that it's time to take action because nothing had changed. The TV programs, there was only one that was for 1 hour per day. So we decided that we're going to put a proposal together, and we're going to pitch it to all these different NGOs. And we did so, and there was a German organization who works at social development, and they took us up on that. And it was crazy because I was then 12. So we first began the project. It was one of the series of 3 projects that we did. The first project was creating radio programs for children so that they have something to hear. And even if the families are so poor that they don't have TVs, they at least have the radio, right, that they could listen to. So we created programs after programs after programs, and we became so good at acting like children. I mean, we were kind of children. So we just took ourselves very seriously. So the second project that we did was we created posters. So the posters first had written messages, and then we changed our strategies into creating picture messages because only 37% of Afghans have formal education. That means writing and reading abilities, and that could go up to 5th grade, right? So we changed our strategies. We were able to reach the whole city, which was around 500,000 people, and we were feel quite accomplished. So at that point, people started. That's when the multiplier effect started, and other children, we were children. So other children started to contact us and show interest. And that's one thing we hadn't expected because we knew that we are jeopardizing our own security for being outspoken and for being girls in Afghanistan and wanting to educate everyone and wanting to protect especially the disabled children's rights. So then for the third project, we gathered the other students who had shown interest, and we created, there's a magazine called Afghanistan Today. We created the baby version of that, and that was where we were actually journalists, and we went and interviewed the mayor, and we interviewed his plans for children and for the involvement of youth in the future policy making. And I don't know how convincing we were, but they listened, and it grew a lot of attraction. So when all of this was going on, and my other siblings are working for the UNs and working as positions in different international organizations, we attracted a lot of attention from Taliban. And that did not go well after I decided to come to the US. So I learned about an opportunity through the State Department to come to the US. Then I applied for it, didn't tell anyone until I got accepted. The whole 4 stages, I just campaigned my happiness, which was really hard. Really one of the hardest things. It's not easy. So then I told my parents I'm moving to the US. And at the time I was 13, and they were like, well, so you're moving to the US. When I decided to come to the US was when my parents stopped living their lives and they started living my dreams. And that is really hard for me to say, but they're still living mine, and they're still living my younger siblings who have come to the US. Because despite everything that they went through, despite all the backlashes we received, despite all the attacks, despite us knowing that we might lose our parents, but then we still chose to stay in the US. We still chose to study. We still chose to receive an education that would benefit our future. We could return, and the threat would be less, but we know better. We know the power of knowledge. We know why they want to silence women, which is why we just did not give up. And my parents would not want us to give up, which is the amazing part, because my parents cannot read and write in any language. And for them to support us to this degree, for me, it's unprecedented, especially for families in Afghanistan. I have not seen any other. So in the midst of all that was going on with my family, and that we had to move houses, like literally change houses every 4 months so that no one could track us down. In the midst of all that, something really amazing happened. And that was that my parents pretty much became the advocates. And other families who were hesitant about letting their children not per se go to other countries, but then let them have higher education, maybe like high school, or let them go to universities in other provinces, right? And they started to come in a very direct and indirect way to our house for many different reasons. Different reasons to others, but then their main reason was to seek my parents' consultation on this. And they had a great amount of questions. And my parents turned out to become, activists. And so I never thought that my mom was very powerful, but very silent. You barely hear her talk. And she became one of the main voices, even more than my father. And the girls whose parents would not come to our house, the girls themselves would come to our house, and they would try to come, ask my mom to go and come with their parents. So the result was very remarkable. I mean, but we still live the backlash. We still are afraid that if the security goes bad, that something might go down really bad with my family. But what matters is that we know the value, right? We have recognized it, and that right now is too late for us to back down. Education brings responsibilities, and we in this room are so fortunate to not only receive a world-class education, but also to receive it in a peaceful place where you go and see it still as a right, not as a privilege. And that is really remarkable, because in this country, the only thing that stops someone from receiving an education, from an institutional education, is themselves, right? But in other countries, there are so many barriers for which we should not take this opportunity for granted. We should try to stand up, not only for ourselves, and to find our own voices, but through which we would stand up for others, and to create this ripple effect throughout the whole world, right? So I would suggest a number of ways to bring about changes and to use your education to empower yourself and to put it into action. And it doesn't have to be grand. You don't have to end famine tomorrow or the refugee crisis, in a year or so. I mean, if you do, that would be amazing. Let's do it together. But you don't have to. It could be as small as doing yourself a favor, and that could be changing your attitude. When we look at the people who have reached the highest positions in the society and have been successful, and the people that we respect, we always see that they have great positive attitude. And that is not just service for others, and that does not just help people around them, but then it helps them take an extra step. And another way is by creating more dialogues. We're in 2017. There is a lot happening. Brexit, a lot of policies that would catch our attention and would make us feel pretty hopeless, but we shouldn't be. Because we know that we have received this education and the mindset that has set us free of this world, that has created a mindset of action rather than sitting back and staying still. When I was in UWC USA, I heard one thing from Vice President then, and he said that there are three kinds of people in the world. One is the kind that kind of don't know what's going on in the world. The second kind is the kind of people who know what's going on and they do not take action. And the third kind are activists, and including that, UWCers, who knows what's going on and they choose to take action. And let us keep that spirit up. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'd like to take you by the word and take actually many of these panelists by the word. There was a lot of talk about dialogue, about listening, and about speaking out, and about creating space for conversation. So we will change the format of the Q&A. And I will ask each of you to turn to your neighbor, and preferably to the one you know least, and to share with each other two things you will take away from tonight. Yeah, we can also do that, but let's first maybe, because we don't have time for everyone, so let's make sure we start a conversation here, and then we can open up to a few final questions, but let everybody have a good space to talk and share for a moment. So we'll take 5 minutes to share with your neighbor. Okay, we are now seriously eating into our drinking time. So we will keep it very short. There's now space for 3 comments or remarks or questions after what you've shared. So we need to start with you because you're very keen on saying something.
Okay, so because I put a lot of thought into how to phrase this, because I think that what I want to ask is really like follow up generalization. So I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna phrase it. So when I was a student at NYC, I kind of believe that the values that we have, like the social understanding, sustainability, and peace, was kind of the natural progression of like where as a society we were headed, like we were in this direction, and anything that was quote unquote conservative was like being left behind. We were all kind of moving in this direction. But now that I'm a university student, I'm realizing that the divisions are a little bit deeper than that, and just like the title of this event, it's an increasingly divided world, and I think we've all seen the current events, recent elections, that it's not, it's not we're not converging, and it's not a linear kind of movement we're going to where it's like quote unquote conservative moving towards progressive. It's not like that. There are more factors, and I think that so there are elements that are pushing us apart and are dividing us further, and some of these factors are economic, some are cultural, maybe some are institutional, but my point is, I feel like these values that we talked about are actually becoming politicized, and that they're now belonging to a certain it's like moving more and more towards the left, and more towards like certain parties. And I feel like there are a group of people who actually like wouldn't support UWC or for America values or some of the things you guys have talked about, who maybe wouldn't support Queer Straight Alliance or refugees, or like for example here kids with Taliban. It's not there are like forces that are fighting against it. So my question is, how can we avoid these values becoming increasingly politicized, or is it too late? Is that already where we are? And also, what would you I know you all talked about like your personal story, and this is a very general question, but what would you all say to people who, because we're focusing on education, which is mostly for kids and younger adults, what would you say to the people, to those whose parents don't support the kinds of missions and the kinds of things we've talked about, and which I realize is also a symptom as well as a cause of the problem, but how are these forces kind of interacting, and where do you see the heading, and how do you fight that, or is there a fight in the I would say start on that. well, we always have to keep a perspective, and that is that we are increasingly listening to the media more than we are speaking to each other. And the media, of course, says whoever gets the most reads at the clicks, right? And it's not going to be Muslims and Christians, happily ever after, living together, right? It's going to be, some kind of controversy. I would try to connect with others who have the same mindset. You would be surprised on how many more people are not like what you see in media, but the way you are. Vast majority of the people still are the way you are, but then our exposure makes us think that is not the way. So if I were you, I would go back to UWCers. I would start having conversations. I think that UWCers could make some of the best entrepreneurs because we have such rich backgrounds and we have such great headspace that we can come together and then speak about problems. When something is controversial, you shouldn't be talking about it less. You should be talking about it more. It's a problem. And in order for you to have a solution, you need to be focusing on it more, right? So get together with the UWCs will begin to bring their friends, and their friends will begin to have exposure, and that's how you will create your own community of people who believe in the same thing. And that would allow you to move forward.
I think I have a different perspective. I think we need that in our lives. Like, we need to be surrounded by people who share our values and our mindsets. It's part of why I work and teach For All. Like, we have these 5 values. Like, we talk about them like all the time, and it's embedded in our work. I think the reality, though, is that the world, I mean, I agree with you on media. I think it kind of creates this narrative that gets headlines and sells stories and has people tune in to CNN and all of that. I do think, though, your question is a really interesting one, right? Like, I think about this within this framework of like systems changing, right, and doing it at the levels of values. And I actually think we're going through a really interesting time, at least in the U.S. I think it's the world right now, and I think we're trying to figure out which values we're going to hold on to and which ones we're going to let go of as a society, at least within the context of the U.S., right? I think this election raised these values about women in positions of power. I mean, we saw it this week with like a senator being treated a certain way that others weren't. I think that we're being forced. Like, this conflict, I don't actually think it's horrible. Right? Because I think it's forcing us as individuals to decide what we believe in and what we're going to like hold on to. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this. He has a new podcast that's coming out, and he talked with a group of us at Teach For All recently about how it takes 2 generations for just technological change, right? Like, we had the technology for like ATM machines in the late 60s, but people didn't start using it until the 90s. I mean, I think my mother still does it, right? You see what I'm saying? So it takes time, like, for systems to, and that's technology, but to talk about like shifting a belief and a value, like holding on to like, perceptions of like white supremacy and like why it was hard to take the flag down and these symbols of racism, like, it's a part of the culture and the DNA of this country. So like, you're not going to get rid of something like in a year. You know what I mean? Like, there's been generations of this stuff, so it's going to take time. And I actually asked him that question. I was like, well, if it took 25 years for an ATM, how long is it going to take for racism? And he was like, okay, well, that's another podcast, right? Like, I guess for me, like, I don't know if it becomes politicized, if that's a horrible thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just going to keep shifting, and I think eventually it's like, who's going to step up and lead, and who's going to step in and say, no, this is what this country stands for. this is what my organization stands for, I think that's how you spread it, you know? But so I don't know, I don't think we're disagreeing, but I think the conflict is good.
Right, as long as we're communicating and we're creating dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In the way back. Yeah, you, no, yeah. We have the microphone.
Okay, I graduated from UWC SEA from Singapore, and I graduated in 2014. So I never done a speech like so I was a day student and in UWC SEA, and like there are students with me who like went in since like they were 5 or 6. My sister went in when she was like 8. So they've been in this like UWC interface as a K2 stuff like that. But like still people at least in my grade, some of you have been like jaded, like with the whole because these problems are so big. And I also feel like things are getting worse. And I mean, I mean like older alumni like here in the city, like here. But like people in my grade, they don't connect. And like I know people in this car, and like I know what they were doing. They're not like working as long as like how we talked before. Like Ian and I know them. I don't know, it's kind of sad, but yeah, I don't take the cause. So my other is like education is a good thing, and I appreciate what Diane Robinson is doing, but it's a long-term goal and it's really effective. But some people still set the cracks and don't internalize what they're kind of wanted. I also feel that it takes a bit too long to take effect, and kind of falls on me and like us as in society to create a society that would influence and inspire the younger generation. But like there are so few of us, and I feel that people are old and young who don't have the privilege of higher education. Like they're not connected with the cause as we do because I don't know, they're just saying, and like we get to them through an assessment and stuff, but then there's still people who can't be reached, and like we need more dialogue with them. And I agree with when we had a conversation. Like a lot of people here I talked with, they said that we need more dialogue and more and that was like getting together and trying to like have a bit more something done. And like I feel that we first do good with what we learn. I feel like there's a lot more stuff that should be done. I'm not sure what we should do in the end. I mean, I'm glad we have this networking thing. I mean, it works. I know the first you ask for help and stuff, and that's probably like the good thing about this. But then, like, we're all UWC students, at least like most of us. We all agree with each other. I mean, not you two, but like. Slogan like that, and people that do the UWC. So we kind of agree with each other at the baseline level that's really high already, but then we can't. Now we're like in a small community, like when we go to 7, 7, 8, 6. But then that's just us. And like whenever we have like events like this, and like back in my school, I'm like, hey, we're all UWC students. This is how great we are. And I feel great. And I feel like we can do great things, but then there's other people that we need to reach, and then I feel like there's action that we're like told to like do, but in the end, I feel like I don't know what to do, and I feel that I don't know. There's like a lot of we go our separate ways after UWC sometimes, and we go into the system, and then we don't do anything together anymore unless we have like this one-off thing like this, but then it's like another organization, and then I'm so sure like what they're I don't know what they're doing. So then I hope it's like a long-term thing. But like I feel like we should all do something together, and then I think instead of us doing stuff separately, we should I don't know. I mean, this maybe we're still thinking. I'm young, but like I don't know what to do after this. I just know.
this concept of circle of influence and circle of concern. And circle of concern basically is touching on all the things that you think about. And if we ask everyone in this room to list the things they think about on a daily basis, that's going to be a lot. And then circle of influence is about what can you actually control, what do you have power over. And so I'm answering your question through my personal example. I tend to focus more on the circle of influence because we all agree there are a lot of issues in this world we live in. But what can you do? So my question to myself is, what can I do? What's my personal contribution to these issues? I'm interested in education, healthcare, equality, gender rights. There's so many things, but obviously it's just one Sheila. So there's only so much I can do, right? And so what can Sheila do at this point in her life? So the work I do right now with ALA, the students I mentioned, the South Sudanese, by just doing my work and doing it well, he gets that impact, right? So I invested in him as an individual. Little did I know that he is now going to set up a school, and that school is going to touch 100 and in a couple years, thousands of lives. I didn't know that. But what I set out to do was do something within my control, which is do my work and do it very well. I love education, and I'm working in that space. That's something I have control over. But if I was thinking about, okay, what are all the issues in the education space? What can the government do? What can that headmaster do? That gets too crazy, and that becomes a bit more disheartening, right? Because there are so many things and nothing is being done. But if you focus on the now and the how and the me part of it, I feel like then you feel like, okay, actually, there is something you can do. So let's not diminish our own individual power in all this conversation.
I am doing the most horrible job of my life in time here. So I'm giving us a final 4 minutes in total, and I know that Jill, there she is. Jill wants to do something, and she has to do it in a maximum of 2 minutes, and I will time you.
Okay, the clock is ticking. I'm Jill, and I was at College a long time ago, and I'm vice chair of For All UWC International. I've been a volunteer at For All UWC for the last 17 years. I do it because I love it, because I really feel that more now than ever before, this organisation is relevant, it's needed, and we need to all pull together to do whatever we can to spread the word about UWC. And I think to answer some of the comments that have come through about values-based education, about we're very small, I think we really need to focus on that. And two or three things I would say is what we're doing in terms of UWC International. We are a values-based educational organisation, and we have a number of values, the same that we have had for decades. We have a very strong mission. We are growing in our impact. We are making more impact now than we have ever done before. And I don't just mean the size of the organisation. You've seen the piece of paper, 17 schools and colleges, 157 national committees, 60,000 alumni. I mean every single individual, exactly what you said, Stella, the impact that each of our four provide marvellous contributions tonight. Every single one of you has a ripple effect that stretches in your area of expertise right around the world. And if we look at what happens with changemakers schools, there was a fellow Afghan student from Atlantic College. They were living in Afghanistan, she went to Atlantic, she ended up in an Iowa university, she did international relations, she became the vice president of the International Relations Society. One person at the age of 21, in much of the ripple effect she then had on other students who've never been outside the USA. We really are focusing on deliberate diversity. To go back to the questions that were answered earlier about how much conflict there is within the country rather than across countries, that's something that the UWC are focusing on now. We're trying to get the scholarship provision up. Our refugee initiative, we're looking to find 100 new refugees coming into the system for 2018. And that is vitally important in terms everybody else's in terms of understanding this issue. And we are trying to focus on engagement. To answer your question again, there's a lot more conversations happening. Most of you are on the hub, and who are involved with other aspects of UWC across countries, across different schools and colleges, across decades, from people who graduated at my age to those who just recently graduated, to the mission. And I think that's what I'd like to share. Less than 2 minutes. We're around the rest of the evening, so if anyone's got any questions or anything, I should also say there's 3 heads in the room. There's Victoria from UWC SDA, there's UWC USA, there's Chris Edwards from UWC SDA, and there's Arnold from UWC LPC. So if anyone's got any educational questions, I would urge you to talk to the 3 of them. Thank you.
Also, a little bit into what For All is doing and how people can get involved.
Absolutely. I mean, and to go back to the question that was asked, I absolutely agree. It's got to start with you, right? And what you care about, who you are, what your strengths are, and where you want to make an impact. But if you want to teach, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm so grateful for my Teach for America experience because it completely changed my path in life, right? And not just what I ended up doing in terms of my career, but who I am as a person, who my friends are, where I lived, all over the country, how I've, now become a part of a global network. So I would encourage you, and it was interesting hearing you speak about Teach for Ghana because I'm actually supporting our African partners that they are scaling in Ghana and across Africa. We're actually 3 partners there and hoping to be 6 in the coming years. 45 countries now, and we'll be scaling in the next. We actually have a 25-year vision right now. You can get involved by getting on our website and learning about any of our current partners. We're in Afghanistan. We just launched recently, and we're so excited about that. So there are ways that you can be a part of any of our partner organizations as a teacher to, become a lifelong leader in education. We have 14,000 people that are still teaching from the original 2 partners and 55,000 alumni, the majority of whom are like me, working either in education as, leaders in education. The majority of the folks in education are actually still teaching. And then we have a lot of people that are working in all sectors. So you name it, folks who are working in finance, who are working in healthcare. There's so many ways to be involved in supporting this movement, which I think is a part of a broader effort that UWC is also a part of to build a more sustainable world for our kids. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for being a part of
There is also something that we often forget when we talk about, conflict is intergenerational dialogues. When I talk to my parents, it's a very different experience from when I talk to another conservative person from my age. And that's because my parents are very close to me, and my parents also have impact to the community that have who are from the same age and also can vote. They have the same rights as us as young people. So a lot of the vocabulary that we use as young people in our everyday life is so alienating for the people who are older than us. And that's not because people are more ignorant or people are smarter. That's just because of the time that we are, or the community that we grew up in. But when I used to refuse to talk to my parents about the things that I grew up with in UWC, and that's because I just believed that, oh yeah, they wouldn't understand, or they wouldn't have the same empathy. But after I graduated from UWC and I realized that I became a very different person from what I grew up in, or the values that I grew up with, I realized that no, that this intergenerational dialogue has to happen as well, because all of us are important, and just because my parents are different from me doesn't mean that we can't reach at least similar conclusion. I don't want to change them. They are growing. They grew up in a very different time in very different communities. They've been there in Syria for 50 years of their lives, and they didn't go to the displacement until very late in their lives, and they're not going to reach the same conclusions as me. And I want to talk to them about what I concluded from this displacement because it is important. It is important for them to understand me, and through this. I mean, we don't only talk. You don't only have to talk to your parents, to people from your age. You can also talk to your parents. Like it's as simple as this, and they're going to. It's going to make you feel happy because you're changing. You're not changing them. You're making them respect you and respect the opinions that you have, and you're in part respect their presence. And this is only one note about a specific type of people.
Thanks so much. Okay, so lots of inspiration for things to do. Talk to somebody old, talk to somebody young. It's time to thank. I would like to thank very much the Teach for All team, and especially Abby, who's standing there, helping all the setting up, and all the volunteers who have helped already this afternoon with everything. I would very much like to thank the speakers, and you will all get a UWC bag with some goodies. In a second, thank you for joining us, and thank you for having traveled, and especially thank you for sharing your thoughts. There are drinks now just around the kitchen, and since I always assume that UWC there's one short night, and I hope that all the Teach for All people will join us, and that we also have a bar where we can go after this venue is closing, so we'll all take you there. On your chairs, you will find a postcard. The postcard is there for you in order to send it to somebody you have met tonight with your lesson learned from tonight. So before you leave, you need to have somebody's address on that postcard and send it to them during the coming weeks as a reminder for what we will change in our lives as from now. And it might just be a different way how we say good morning to our neighbor tomorrow. Everything will be on Facebook. Again, it will be available. Join us also on social media. I'm sure the same applies for Teach for All to stay involved. I would also would like to introduce Kevin, who is there. For all the New Yorkers, most of you will know him, the others not. He is the head of the UWC New York group, and I'm sure it's an absolutely inclusive group, so all the Teach for All and Teach for America people will be there. And I will not give you the word because we really have to end now, but go and find him over a beer.
One thing, we're trying to do small fundraisers for the refugee scholarship. I have legit send my phone every month. You can come and eat. And even better, you can set your own. So,
And finally, just a big thank you for all of you for coming, for being patient with my really bad timekeeping. And I hope this is the start of many conversations and that we will live up to the challenge of providing space for dialogue and also for the difficult conversations. Thanks so much and enjoy the conversation. There's UWC outside, the Teach for All inside. But there's Teach for All inside, so you probably don't know.